same old Browns? I mean, that's the big question I think that some of us will be wrestling with. More importantly, it's the same question that I think some of the Browns have to face this week after losing 38-14 to the Chargers, 38-14 in Cleveland, First Energy Stadium to the Chargers, 38-14. Now the Chargers are a good team, and that's one of the few times I actually predicted something right. Now, some people say, here's what the Browns need to do with that game. You take it, like right here, just a bunch of garbage, and you throw it away, you almost pretend it never happened. Go on to the next game at Tampa Bay. Now, not a bad idea. Tampa Bay has the worst defense in the NFL. Good chance for the Browns to win, even though they haven't won a road game since 2015. Now, here is why, though, I think this week is a critical one for the Browns. Because it doesn't matter how often the Browns say, well, this is a different team, and we have different players, and it's a different year. They inherit the history of the past, the 0-16, the 1-15, the 3-13. Those are just the last 3 years. I could just keep going on and on. It is kind of like when you move into a very dysfunctional family. Maybe you weren't part of the problem before, but you're living in the same house suddenly with a whole bunch of these other peoples with all their other issues. And the Browns are a team and a franchise known for its issues and problems and dismal history. Now, the first 5 games gave us all reason for hope. The first 5 games, all close. Browns won by 4, Browns won by 3, Browns lost a couple games by 3, and they tied one. Then came the Chargers game. Now, I look at that and I wonder, how is the coaching staff going to handle this? Because Hue Jackson could stand there and say, hey, it's all on me, it starts with me. What does that mean? I mean, frankly, the word sounds sort of hollow, but actually, a lot of it is on him. Because he is the coach who walks around with a 1-31 record from the last 2 years. You know, and he is the coach who wanted, quote, real players, as John Dorsey called them, and got a number of those real players. And it's his coaching staff, he and Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator, can't seem to figure out what to do with Jarvis Landry. Can't seem to figure out what to do with Duke Johnson. You know, the last 2 weeks, the Browns scored 12 points, 14 points. Now, the defense has had some real problems too, but I'm kind of concentrating in those areas. And yes, there has to do with the Browns. I think they missed Rashard Higgins a lot more than they ever thought they would. You know, he had emerged as the number 2 receiver. But I look at some of the game plans. The Browns played 3 receivers about 85% of the snaps. Remember, all their receivers are hurt. The 3 receivers being Jarvis Landry, Antonio Callaway, and the 3rd receiver was Damian Ratley, a rookie who had only played 1 snaps before this. Why are you playing 3 receivers with such a skeleton crew? Why isn't Duke Johnson, running back, one of those receivers? I mean, if I were John Dorsey, the general manager, I'd be asking the coaches in that kind of voice, well, guys, what were we thinking? Our receiver core was so limited. Why not play a couple of tight ends and throw the ball to the tight ends some more, something? Because clearly that group wasn't working, that setup wasn't working. After the game, Hue Jackson said, well, our game plan said 3 receivers were the best way to attack the Chargers. I will say, well, I guess it depends on who the 3 receivers are. Maybe not that group. But more importantly, what the Browns have to do is avoid some of the things that always would happen to them in the past, when maybe they would start okay and they'd win a game or 2. This is several years back. But then a big stinker like this would hit, and then things would begin to pull apart. Coaches and players pointing fingers. Because that is the history of this team. And for history to change, It does have to start with Hue Jackson, and has to start with Todd Haley, the new offensive coordinator. It has to start with Gregg-Williams, the defensive coordinator, whose defense was absolutely embarrassed and savage. And please don't send me any more emails about the officials. I know they're awful. That missed offsides call on the Chargers tackle that led to a Chargers touchdown. In a year of horrendous calls, it was the worst. But when you give up 38 points and you only score 14, the officials are not the problem. When you come out for the opening kickoff and you are flagged because your guy, Denzel Rice, was lined up in the wrong spot on the first play of the game, a kickoff, just lined up wrong, that right away was a hint that they weren't focused, they weren't into the game. Now, granted, the players or professionals should do that, but it's also up to the coaches, I think, to really not just yell at them and scream at them, but have them be able to grow as professionals and see this is how we handle victory. How about this? They didn't know how to handle a 12-9 win over Baltimore. That was obvious. All right, so this week, yeah, a lot of people are on the spot, but the biggest one, Hue Jackson and his coaching staff.